Okay, here is a man. It's kind of a long comment he left, but it's pretty significant. And it surprised me. I didn't realize this could be an issue. He says, before my kidney transplant, so he had a kidney transplant, I was tested for glucose. Now, he doesn't say whether he was on any diabetic meds or not, but he says the results of my glucose test came at 65, which is low, quite low. I mean, you're not too far from a hypo. Once you dive down into the 50s, it's time to eat something kind of sugary to get it back up. Came at 65. He says that was normal for me. The day after my operation, I was tested 3 times at the hospital, and the numbers were a lot higher. I remember numbers as high as 200 plus. So that's very strange. He had a kidney transplant, and beforehand, he was well under 100. And the day after his operation, he's up to 200 and over 200. He says, I was so scared. I waited so long to get to this point, that is, to be able to get my new kidney. And he says, I didn't want to lose my new blessed kidney to diabetes. Well, I wouldn't either. He says, I was very frustrated. I was never told how to deal with my new sad reality. Never told how to deal with high blood sugar, apparently is what he's saying. Here's the sad thing. I get that doctors don't have time to sit around for 30 minutes, an hour, and talk to people all about blood sugar and nutrition. A lot of them don't know too much about nutrition. Some do. But even if they knew everything there was to know, they just don't have the time. They will schedule 20, 25 patients a day, and they got to be in and out. And most of them are good people, good, decent men and women, and they'll try to sit for a few minutes, but they just can't. So this doctor didn't really give him any kind of advice. But here's the thing. It doesn't take a long time to help people figure out how they can at least begin to get into the process of beating diabetes. I mean, the average person who knows what they're talking about could do it in about 5 minutes. Get them started at least. Recommend a couple of good books. Recommend a couple of good YouTube channels like this one, if I do say so myself. And talk about the necessity of lowering their carbohydrate intake and maybe time-restricted eating. You could do that in 5 or 6 minutes if you talk fast and you don't dilly-dally and don't get onto some rabbit trail. You could do that, but he got nothing. You don't need an all-day seminar to get you started, is what I'm saying. Sometimes we think, if I could just go to a diabetes seminar, if I could just afford it, a week-long seminar where they'd tell me everything there is to know. Well, you don't have to do that. I mean, maybe it will be good for you if the people know what they're talking about. But in many cases, just get some good books, watch some YouTube videos, find a nutritionist that understands that carbohydrates drive blood sugar. It's just about that simple. Let me say it again. Carbohydrates drive blood sugar. If you don't believe it, get yourself a glucose meter or a CGM and see what happens after you eat. All right. So he says, I never was told what to do. One day while watching YouTube, I came across your channel. This was the defining moment in my life. This was the first time someone explained to me and introduced me to the diabetic world. That's powerful. Watching one of my YouTube videos, or maybe several of them, he calls the defining moment in his life. I'm sure he's talking about concerning diabetes. And he was introduced to what diabetes is all about and how you beat it. He says, you not only inspired me, you guided me about what to eat in order to have full control of my new forced disease due to the anti-rejection meds that I had to take to prevent my body from attacking my new kidney. So according to him, and I don't know if this is normal or not, but according to him, it was the anti-rejection meds that he was taking with that new kidney that had pushed him into diabetes. I hadn't heard that before, but I have no reason to doubt him. And I don't know if that's something that happens to a lot of people when they get transplants, kidney transplants, or various organ transplants, or if he was kind of a rare case. So if you've had an experience with this sort of thing, let us know in the comments. He says, boy, did it help. I was no longer scared or confused. You opened my eyes to a very controllable diet, which involves self-discipline and new thinking about food. I love this statement. I was no longer scared or confused. And I hear that in various, spoken in different ways and with different phrases, but basically that same thing. No longer scared or confused. It was like, okay, this is doable. I can do this. This is reasonable. This isn't crazy. This isn't some freakish, weird guy that, I may be a little strange, but this is just reasonable. And I could rattle off, a dozen doctors and experts that will say the same thing that I say, and they're smarter than me. Anyway, he says, a year later, I've lost 72 pounds. My A1C is around 5.7. So he's not in the 200s anymore. He says, my doctor was so amazed by my adjustments to my new reality, that is, having a new kidney and having to take these anti-rejection meds. He says, the doctor was so impressed with the way I adjusted to this, I was told to keep on doing what I was doing. Dennis, you saved my life. With your guidance, I left all my concerns behind and gained confidence by knowing that I can beat the beast. Wow, that's a powerful statement and a powerful testimony. In some ways, if you're listening to this, I'd love to interview you for Beat Diabetes for this channel. That's a powerful story. But he was scared. He was nervous. He didn't know what to do. His meds, apparently, according to him, were driving his blood sugar crazy. And then he figured out what he could do. And now he's doing much better. He's in the 5s. Well, there can be a lot of reasons why your glucose can suddenly skyrocket. Sometimes I think it's just a matter of, you can picture a dam with all the water building up behind the dam, and the dam is bulging and there's cracks forming and little drips here and there, and suddenly the water behind the dam is so powerful and it is such a pressure, the dam just breaks and collapses and the water comes pouring out. Sometimes I think when we go from a place where we have close to normal blood sugar and suddenly it's off the charts, the dam just broke. You had problems a long time ago, but the dam was holding up to that point. Your pancreas just pushing out more insulin, more insulin, more insulin, and suddenly the dam breaks and your pancreas gives up. And boom, there you go. But it can be other things. It could be pregnancy for women. Can cause gestational diabetes. Sometimes stressful seasons of your life can push it up. We don't understand all of it. I'm not going to pretend I know all of it, but I do know that whatever the cause is, the solution is pretty much the same. You cut the carbs to the degree you need to get that glucose under control, knowing that as the glucose comes under control, your insulin is going to be lowered. If you're doing this by diet, it works, because as you are not seeing the high glucose, your pancreas does not need to push out all that insulin. So not only does your glucose come down, which is a good thing all by itself, but your insulin comes down as well, and it does you a world of good. Let me just give you a key word to kind of close this out with, and that is, the word is unacceptable. Some things in life we have to deal with. There's no getting around it. Age is one of them. And I could fight age all I want and say, well, I'm just determined I'm going to look like I did when I was 25 and feel like I did when I was 25 and act like I did when I was 25. And my memory's going to be as good as when I was 25. I'm going to run as fast as when I was 25. I could make all the positive affirmations in the world. It wouldn't matter. Age is going to get to you, and it's going to make some changes. And there's not a lot you can do. There are some things that can lessen its age's effect, but you can't stop it. But you can stop diabetes. You can stop it in its tracks. And you've got to come up with this key word, unacceptable. High glucose, an A1C of 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 14 is unacceptable. Blood sugar over 200 is unacceptable. Peaks that jump over 200, even if they do come down, that's unacceptable. And you've got to come to that point. If you don't, you'll never beat diabetes. You've got to come to the point where you say to yourself, self, this is unacceptable. And then you begin to make the changes. But you got to know what to do. And a lot of people don't even know what to do. So you've got to have the information, you've got to have the knowledge, and then you've got to have the determination. And it all starts really when you say, unacceptable. I am not going to be a diabetic the rest of my life. I'm not going to get my legs cut off, my toes cut off, my feet cut off. I'm not going to go on dialysis. I'm not going to lose my kidneys. I'm not going to lose my eyesight. This is unacceptable. I will make whatever changes I need to make. I will not become a raging diabetic. In fact, no diabetic at all, because I'm going to get my blood sugar under 6.5. In fact, I want to be in the 5s. And anything less is unacceptable. When that is your attitude, ma'am, when that is your attitude, sir, you're on your way to beating diabetes. Probably most of you know my wife Benedicta, but few of you know the amazing paths God has led her to bring her to where she is today. Benedicta was orphaned at an early age and lived with an elderly stepmother growing to adolescence. They were so poor, Benedicta had to drop out of school and sell food door to door for them to survive. As a teen, Benedicta got a job as a housemaid, which developed into a nightmare. She was required to cook, clean, wash, take care of the children, and she had to get up at 4 a.m. every day just to get her work started. Worse than that, she was frequently beaten. At around 20, she moved to the huge city of Lagos, where she started her own little business. Sometimes she prospered, but at other times she nearly starved and went days at a time without eating. At one point, she became so sick she passed out in her room and nearly died. She found herself outside of her body, and she was able to see the splendors of heaven until she was sent back with a command to share her story. One day, however, her life changed when an American evangelist came to her community to preach. And of course, that was me. The rest, as they say, is history. Benedicta has shared her life story in a recently published autobiography, and you can get it on Amazon as either an ebook or a paperback. A link to this book on Amazon is in the description.